Hey everybody, welcome back. This is it's been a little while. It's been a solid couple of weeks. We've had a lot of travel going on for ourselves. We're back in the States, as you can see from this weird background. But we'll be back to normal in about a week's time again. Just a little quick trip out here for some family stuff. But I'm back. We're gonna take a look at another Inside Star Citizen this week. Sprint report, so there's going to be a lot of different subjects, and honestly something we haven't gotten from Inside Star Citizen in a while. This is the most viewed episode this year so far, and the first sprint report I believe in like 6 months, so hopefully we'll get a little bit of an update on some of the stuff we can expect going past 319 this year. That's kind of what I'm looking out for here, but judging by the template, the thumbnail thingy, maybe we'll see some vehicle tractor beam stuff. I don't know. I'm very behind the times on this one, so I'm sure most of you have already seen it, but let's see what's going to come.
As the first quarter of 2023 comes to a close, we're hitting a few milestones here for what we call internally the Evergreen Content Team. That's the folks that are dedicated to the creation of weekly, recurring, some might say evergreen video content. For Inside Star Citizen, today's show represents the completion of our 4th year and 150th episode since that first evolution from Around the Verse in 2019.
That's kind of crazy. Has it really been that long? Has it been 4 years of Inside Star Citizen? It's been a while.
And when you factor in the legacy of ATV and Wingman's Hangar before that, we're now just passing the 450th episode of this continuing behind-the-scenes series unlike anything you'll find from any game developer anywhere else. And yet, somehow, still, we never show anything good.
They somehow always show ships and never progress with the actual game, from what I've heard.
It also marks the personal completion for me of 8 years shepherding over 1,200 videos showcasing the creation of this project. Even that one holiday live stream we don't like to talk about anymore.
You guys remember when we watched that?
So, to sign us off for this quarter, before we go about our regularly scheduled hiatus, we're bringing back an old favorite, that grab bag of tiny looks at various aspects from all over development, the Sprint Report. Hey. Now, for those of you who maybe have never seen one of these before, a sprint is what we call the internal 2-week cadence where developers go off on a task, come back to check in, see everyone's progress, get some notes, and then either move on to something else or go back for another 2-week sprint on the same feature.
I personally think we should be getting one of these every month.
What that means is what you're going to see here this week is actually internal development.
Because when you see the progress on a feature over the course that they've been working on it, it's not as easy to just suddenly forget that they're working on it, and be lost and confused 6 months later.
Possibly because we changed their medications. So without further ado, let's jump into the Inside Star Citizen Quarter 1 2023 Sprint Report and Clam Bake Showdown.
Oy.
I'm assuming that editorial will put a nice, subtle title on screen right here.
What's clam bake?
Also, there's no Clam Bake Showdown. I don't know
Sounds
why
like
I
a
said that.
Northeastern thing.
Let's start things off with some spacecraft and vehicles, where there was recently a small onboarding task for a new hire to update the remote turrets for the 600i from Origin, which you can see here.
Okay, it looks like they're actually not going to be on the hull at all times, which was terrible at the first design.
We can all agree it's a noticeable improvement over what's in the game today. And if you watched last week's ISC on the upcoming changes to tractor beams in Alpha 319 and beyond, you might have noticed the Argo SRV flying around in that Beyond section. Here's a closer look at its progress as it currently makes its way through final art towards a scheduled release later this year. Now, for
definitely
those who
not
follow
319.
the progress tracker on the public roadmap, here are your first looks at 3 vehicles currently making their journeys throughout the pipeline.
Somebody lost it, I think in the comments, and somebody was like, why in the world would they make a luxury rover when we can't even, nobody's looking for luxury trips on the ground? And I think people miss the idea that luxury in this sense doesn't necessarily mean fancy, just means higher materials, better components, sleeker designs, stuff like that. So it makes sense that this actually looks a lot like the Ursa. It's just, it has nicer materials and a little bit better design. Be interested to see how it actually functionally is set apart though.
Fine. Starting with the RSI Lynx rover, companion sojourner to the famous Ursa we all know and love, an often found package
Oh, there's a bar. That's what does
with
it.
the luxurious Constellation Phoenix. It's currently in gray box phase, and it's nice to see the RSI styling continue to evolve. Especially with those tires. I mean, I'm not usually a tires are cool dude, but those are cool tires, right?
What about the tires?
And as we move inside, we can take a look at the cockpit coming along. And then there's the rear, which is at the back.
It's definitely the bar that sets it apart.
And which is already far more fancy than its Ursa brethren.
And that wide seat, look at that. Ultimate gaming chair over there.
Okay, I thought the tires were cool, but can a chair also be cool? Because that looks like a comfy ass chair.
It's an ass chair.
Can I say that? No, I just edited it out. Yeah, it'll be fine. Good job. There's also the Crusader Spirit, which just entered gray box phase recently. You can see here early work on the exterior, making certain every part of it matches the metrics laid out in the white box phase before it. Then popping in through the rear of the ship, which, like the Lynx, is also in the back. And then into the cockpit that's looking, well, a bit contrasty at the moment. But that's not uncommon for gray box phase, as this period is mostly about defining shape language and material breakup before everything gets refined later in final art phase.
All right, so I'm thinking the Spirit and SRV are both coming later this year. I don't know if they're going to do a patch in August this year, but if not, then I imagine this would come in their October-ish period patch. This ship series, the SRV, Lynx in 319 seems fairly likely. And what was there? There was a third, right? Those were all three of them. There was the Lynx, the SRV. Oh, the Lynx, the Spirit, and we have one more coming up. I guess that's probably the...
Before everything gets refined later in final art phase. And then let's take a look at the gray box bomb bay for the bomber variant that's being worked on in tandem with all the others. Finally, let's look at recent gray box progress on the Apoa Santok.
So the Santok is the third one. I could see this one coming for Alien Week. Can't think of a better time of the year to drop it.
The Alien Xi'an fighter, where you can see the exterior coming along pretty well. The thrusters are being modeled out.
Little legs.
And they've started exploring how the landing gear will work, experimenting with the shape language a bit to make certain they're beefy enough to believably hold the mass of this entire ship when all is said and done.
Little grasshopper
looking
legs.
And as for when you're going to see the 600i turret, the Lynx, the SRV, the Spirit, the Santok
Wait, let me guess. Look at the progress tracker.
and more make their way into the persistent universe, I'd recommend as always keeping an eye on the public roadmap for details when they become available.
There it is.
Now let's move from ships that fly to winged creatures. As astute readers of the monthly report might already be aware, one of the many things the AI team is currently working on is pushing Boyd's development in the persistent universe. Now, Boyds are the algorithmic behavior of small creatures that can populate the planets and moons of the persistent
crucial stuff.
Universe, with a test here of condors slowly learning to avoid flying into mountains or drowning in the oceans beneath them. Dun 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 Condor Man. Nobody, huh?
I'm happy for the birds.
And then some work on ocean fish. Here, completely, totally, and utterly
birds and fish, yeah.
Unanimated. It's just a test of behaviors here, people, without all the motion parameters that'll make them look good one day.
Yeah, not gonna lie, this is something that I actually literally couldn't care less about. I mean, I'm sure we'll need fish at some point to be somewhere at some situation, but I could go my entire gaming career without seeing a fish in a body of water. I wouldn't feel like my immersion was broken. But you know what? Fish swim.
Now, I'm including this as a test. If I see all you out there on the internet's like, these Star Citizen fish look great, I'm gonna know you don't listen to a word I'm saying. My feelings will be hurt.
Meanwhile, the Interactables team, formerly known as the Props team, have been running through and physicalizing a bunch of assets for the persistent universe, like these weights for gyms like the ones you might find in New Babbage.
Yes, you can finally
Similar to
lift.
the fish we just watched, this is also before animation has had their chance to contribute, so let's not judge the throwing form being displayed here. Still, it's nice to see even the littlest things in the verse behave naturally with realistic mass and physics whenever possible.
That is pretty cool that they fly similar to how their weight works, and this is something that I think is going to be used a lot with tractor beams as they physicalize things like components and weapons and all that stuff. Their actual mass values will be attached to them, and that will affect how you can handle them with the tractor beams. So you will get, I think, that heavier sense of weight in this game. We've been waiting a lot for that. And I think this kind of stuff, them physicalizing this stuff, which is in addition to the Item 2.0 stuff they did way back when, will probably help.
This effort to make things behave as you'd expect them to also extends to the coffee machines of the verse, with a pass recently done to go through and repair their broken functionality. Now, I did consider turning this section into an update on either bartender or mess hall features, just for old time's sake. But someone who will go unnamed stopped me. Just know that there are heroes out there looking out for each and every one of you. Also, it looks like the team developed a few new coffee mugs along the way. We'll just let this video play for a bit, see a couple coffee cups in action, and think about how much bartender stuff I'm not talking about right now.
But how about other coffee makers? I want to see an Argo coffee maker.
Speaking of bartenders, if you want some Interactables of your own, there's this new set of Star Citizen pint glasses up for pre-order on the web store. I asked if they wanted me to promote them, and they said no, because you'll probably do something silly and stupid with it. And I said, leave it with me. And they said, what? No, we said no. And I said, no problem. And here we are.
Not gonna lie, we don't need to promote merch on ISC.
Back to the Interactables team, they've also been prototyping a new way to hang a variety of posters on the walls of the player habs and spacecraft with these new, expanding electronic devices that could let you decorate any space that's marked up for them. The prototyping here is using common adverts for in-universe events, but the possibilities of this feature become apparent.
Your own Coca-Cola ad in your apartment. Bought and paid for. All your funds help in development. And Coca-Cola. No, really though, I see the potential for this to be really cool. And, you know, also very poorly used. But we'll see what happens. I look forward to more customization for sure. That's really nice to see.
Very quickly in allowing players to not only decorate their spaces, but to collect and memorialize important moments from their time in the persistent universe.
That's
to
cool.
Take missions to set up flyers for in-game shops or events, post bulletins for bounty missions, and much, much more.
You know, I will say this. I say things like they need to move more of their stuff from the website into the game. And something they've done for a long time is given people like name banners or icons that you can add to your name on the website. And if they are able to add graphics to a system like this that players can put in their habs that kind of take that place, that is actively moving something from the website into the game. That makes a big difference. It's something that people want to be able to show off. Hey, I was here 18 years ago when we were still doing our first couple dynamic events. Here's my poster and this cool hab from it. You know, it's a nice addition. It's a small one, but like a really good one to see.
And this last bit is from both the Interactables and Mission Feature team, who have been developing the next dangerous new contraband to sweep its way through the persistent universe, grasping weevil eggs.
Ooh.
Grasping weevil eggs.
Why are they grasping?
What's the file name?
Oh, no, that's what it is. Huh.
Why are they grasping? I thought it was gasping.
Let's switch on over to the environment, planetary, and lighting team's work with these images of updated atmosphere progress for the planet Hurston, which adds a stronger layer of pollution much closer to the planet's surface that helps suck light out of the atmosphere, add a richer gradient, and really just makes the place seem dirtier overall, which we can expect to play very well with the upcoming Loreville 2.0 and Alpha 3.19, some of which you can see here. I'm just gonna let these
that does
images
look better. The smog in the city does look better. I still want to see some low-lying clouds, though. I think I would really like to see them figure out how to get one more set of clouds, a layer, like we've seen in a couple of the videos, lying closer to these cities, because getting the clouds kind of like in the concept art right above the city would give it such a kind of a claustrophobic feel on top of the scale that we already get. I don't know. I hope they can figure that out
themselves a bit.
Does look good. This is just different lighting settings, I'm assuming.
And we'll take a deeper look at how light, atmosphere, and the new cityscape all come together in Alpha 3.19 when ISC returns from hiatus in just a few weeks. And while the atmosphere of Hurston is getting a little love, so too are the verdant forests of Microtech. As part of a greater overall overhaul we'll be discussing more of in the coming months, the forests of Microtech are receiving a performative refresh that will make the environment seem richer and denser visually, while providing more gameplay opportunities for cover during missions, racing, and other activities galore.
It'll be nice to see if this is going to go beyond just trees like they're just showing here. The density looks good, but I hope we can hear a little bit more about like interaction. If they're getting any better at making sure that every tree or every tree stump or every log that's on the ground or every rock is actually there and physical, versus like just getting shot through it or your vehicle going through it or something like that. That sort of thing also really helps the planets feel a lot more real, because right now you still kind of get that paper mache feel. Cool to see them updating these biomes though, especially since, I'm assuming it's because they can't do much else future-wise while they're just waiting for server meshing to allow them to expand more. But it's nice to see these existent biomes get better over time while we're waiting to expand still.
The landing zone teams have also completed a sprint adding additional mission locations scattered around the planet Crusader in the style of resort hotels that can utilize overlays for pleasant, in-use active businesses, as well as those taken over by the ever-present and vile Ninetails. Each new cluster is designed to be a procedural home for a variety of mission types, and looks to draw players out from Orizon and into the far corners of the gas giant.
Cool. So they're finally spreading them out.
Down on the surface of Hurston, work is underway on early white box phase.
These little updates to the cities, especially where they're adding missions, are going to be really important in the future when it's a lot bigger deal to go between two planets. They're going to want people to be able to spend a lot of time around one planet running missions, building a reputation, getting items, and learning the lay of the land rather than going back and forth between planets in multiple or in one play session. So seeing them continue to flesh out these more city and planet-based missions is definitely good to keep an eye on.
Of local law enforcement offices, a place for players to utilize the next evolution of bounty hunting gameplay we'll discuss more about later this year. To collect, or in this case, drop off the captured bodies of criminal outlaws collected by players. Now the drop off here is right up front, because
they just put them straight into cryo storage. This game's so dark sometimes.
as an early test, it was getting kind of weird just walking through the hallways, pushing bodies deeper and deeper into the facility. Unless you're into that sort of thing. Moist Noodle.
It's got it in for moist.
You can then also check out the bounty boards to collect new missions here, or go forward into the shop and resupply as needed. And there's an office for meetings, but who needs more of those in life? And then we bring ourselves to the detention area, where a number of cells can vary from location to location. I suspect that many of you will be looking forward to spending your time anywhere else besides Kleischer. even if it's just a jail and not a prison.
Hopefully they have mission givers in those cells, you know, like you have to get, I mean, it's crazy, but like you have to get arrested and end up there and have a conversation with somebody to find out a mission.
Also in white boxes, the pre-production blockouts for a variety of building interior modules that will fit inside the towering skyscrapers of New Babbage on Microtech, being developed and tested in situ simultaneously to work out and discover anything developers might not have considered or recognized as necessary in the original mandate. The idea here is that once the player lands, they would enter this particular interior from the very top, encountering a lobby and expected elevators. Then after
these elevators in these buildings still save us.
Brief trip down, emerge into a number of different interior modules such as block of player apartments seen in the example here. And speaking of modular interiors, the Montreal Tools team continues their work refining the very process used to make locations for the persistent universe, including several sprints on something called the PU Locations tool, a plugin that artists and designers can use to build and iterate modular locations quickly for the various star systems of the persistent universe. What you're seeing here is the PU Locations tool fully integrated into the game editor, where this person has decided they wish to create a space clinic in Pyro. No doubt a location players will visit quite often in the lawless frontier that awaits. Next, let's cook the first module, which is the lobby and includes the relevant connectors necessary so that the player can traverse from one room to the other without falling through into the cold depths of space. It's important players feel safe in their space stations, at least from the environment art. Legal note, this does not extend to elevators, which are a unique curse upon players and developers alike.
That was an abrupt music change. So when I look at these locations being made, I think the next question that comes to my mind, and hopefully this is something that they go over the next time they have these locations teams on Star Citizen Live. In fact, they just had the Montreal team on. I don't think they talked about this though, but really, what is now the next step? These tools have been made. We've been told for quite a while that these tools being made will help with the game expanding after, you know, that the bandwidth is there to do so. And we know that a lot of that is based on server meshing PES, which is just now struggling to become stable, and really just the back end becoming more solid. But besides that, what do they feel is going to hold them back? Because I want to know, where do we go from the tools being made? How fast can we expect you guys to be starting to expand locations? Talking more about kind of the mid to long-term future with those things, because we got into this point where I think everybody kind of knows what's the deal leading up to 4.0 and server meshing, but what is really the particular goal after that? And then obviously they'll say it's pushing towards beta or whatever, but we've kind of always had an idea of what's going on. And even in this sprint report, we're starting to see the roadmap for, I think, the next year and a half, probably. Some of this stuff I think we'll get within the next year. Some of it I think we'll get after 4.0, things like the building interiors and stuff like that. But yeah, I'd like to hear how this all sort of starts to fold into a longer term plan once again, now that we're getting to 4.0 territory. Hopefully soon. Hopefully once they get server meshing going, they'll talk more about that. Oh, geez. That was rude. Kind of dark, dude.
Next is what's called the Universal Room, which is a super fancy programmer term for hallway. They know it's true. We can even change the seed if we don't like that particular hallway and generate another and another, each one creating the various connectors needed for us to continue building. And then some side rooms, or in rare cases, a rear room, which is usually at the back. Some shops like the pharmacy. Oops, an assert. I'm going to leave that in there for solidarity with developer pain.
Oh, this looks like fun.
Now let's go inside and start.
Hold on, I want to go back to that scene with the javelins.
Cooking some overlays, which is basically everything involved in the set decor that will further distinguish one space clinic from the next. Things are pretty generic at the moment, so we turn on our viz areas, check our tags, start the cook, and whoa, nice. We move forward. Looks like we forgot to cook a container. Easy enough. We're not going to put rooms here, so let's go ahead and start closing these connectors off. And then we can cook us up another overlay for this side room here. Nice. And this process is repeated in all subsequent rooms, and overall it's another terrific example of how game development is exponential and absolutely non-linear in progress.
It's good to see this finally. I mean, we've been watching this stuff develop for a long time, and to see it finally working so easily for them is great. Now we need to know how interactable is it going to be.
Now, as asset libraries are built and grown and tools are conceived and iterated on, the progress you can make at one point should be exceeded by the next, and overall becomes a continuing reminder that the struggle of what comes before is necessary and right to birth the improved technologies, efficiencies, and general effectivenesses of everything that comes next, including a new version that does everything you just saw in one click that recently became available to developers.
Nice.
And while we're talking new technologies, let's wrap things up this week with some work from the PU character art team, which had a small sprint working to convert some of our older legacy assets to newer resources that have been developed over recent years, including Layer Blend V.
I've always loved this particular set of armor, and I hope that we meet some mission givers or some small-time NPCs with actual spoken lines that are wearing this kind of stuff in Pyro.
2 and the ability to spawn items with specific levels of wear and decay. So this means that not every version you find out in the verse is going to look exactly the same.
Cool.
The team is also using the opportunity to discover more chances to further modularize existing armors like the Nomad and Light Outlaw you're seeing here, as well as many more we'll be showcasing later this year. It's part of a continuing effort to add more customization to what you wear in both the new stuff that's coming down the pipeline and what's already there in the persistent universe. And that customization also extends to a variety of tints that can be used for spawning armor variants within the universe, which you can see in some early explorations here. This will allow mission and location designers to specify specific variations of components and tints for different areas, or use procedural tools to randomly generate dozens and dozens of variations for each outfit. And when that gets extended to many of the outfits already within the universe, this will get us a far greater variety of things within the Persistent Universe than we have today.
I would be interested in hearing from you guys in the comments. Would you prefer, now I know that for ships this is a big topic, but for things like armor and guns, would you prefer to be able to customize the color and the material of the armor or gun? Or would you prefer it be you find something and that's how it is and you have to go out and find these things? Because I know the latter would definitely add more value to things and make things more rare and interesting. And it's kind of how things are already. You go to a certain place to buy it in a certain color. But I also understand that people want to customize and make things look a certain way based on what they want. So it's definitely two approaches. I think both give them the chance to monetize armor and cosmetics quite well. So really, I'd just like to hear what your personal opinion is on that.
And oh heck, I know I said we were going to wait until our last big segment on Lorville in just a couple weeks once we return from hiatus, but let's go ahead and leave you with just a few shots of the absolutely fantastic work the lighting team.
Isn't it interesting that they're going this whole thing without showing us the new player experience? I wonder, maybe just because it's not exciting, but they showed us literally fish swimming. So why aren't they showing us more of the new player experience stuff?
Is doing, bringing this new Lorville 2.0 to life.
Oh, that is pretty.
Yeah, I'm gonna shut up and let several thousand words of images do the talking instead.
It looks really nice. But is it just a backdrop? I mean, I'm betting that this is just a backdrop, but will there be anything like that where we can land? You know, they're putting in these locations around Orison, right, with buildings and stuff. Could we see procedural refineries that maybe use their UGF, their underground facility tools to be built? It looks great. I just like to be able to fly over there. The rails definitely remind me of Microtech too. And I know the buildings have some R-Corp vibes. The interesting thing is that there's nothing being done to the interior, is what it seems like from these previews.
So what
The exterior is beautiful though.
Well, we learned that there are, as always, a lot of ships and vehicles in the pipeline, all scheduled to make their way to the persistent universe throughout the remainder of this year. That work to bring fauna to the persistent universe is back on the menu. That grasping weevil eggs are a thing, as is the continuing work to physicalize as many aspects of Star Citizen as possible. That locations, new and old, continue to be iterated on and improved upon, as do the tools our team members use to create them, and that, boy howdy gee willikers, I'm pretty certain we're just gonna park the only constant outside Lorville at night for all of Star Citizen Live next quarter. Now, as we're at the end of this quarter, ISC is going on its regularly scheduled hiatus, but the work doesn't stop there. Next quarter, we'll be back with our final looks at Lorville 2.0 before it goes live in Alpha 3.19. We're going to take a deeper look at the vast changes and improvements coming to Arena Commander after that, as well as the new derelict settlement towns, new player experience tutorial, a sequel to the buggy racetrack in Origin, but for Microtech.
Hold on, I blacked out.
Vast changes and improvements coming to Arena Commander after that, as well as the new derelict settlement. Look at the vast
Is he talking about the next sprint report? I totally blacked out, guys.
At Lorville 2.0 before it goes live in Alpha 3.19. We're going to take a deeper look at the vast changes and improvements coming to Arena Commander after that, as well as the new derelict settlement towns, new player experience tutorial, a sequel to the buggy racetrack in Origin, but for Microtech, explorations of the new ships and vehicles around.
You know, I'm surprised they're doing a sequel to the buggy track. I haven't really seen much buzz about that. I'm sure people are using it, but when I went there, I just kept getting harassed by other people who were there.
Arriving at this year's Invictus launch week, a discussion with superstar concept artist Gavin Rothery about envisioning more ships for Star Citizen than anyone else alive. We're going to look ahead to a whole bunch of new features coming in Alpha 3.20, and then of course continuing our journey.
Okay, we got a mention of 3.20, so now we just need to figure out, is that something that they're planning for August or October? I'm thinking October. I think our 3.19 is supposed to be the only summer patch, but we'll see.
To 4.0 here and there along the way. It's been one hell of an 8 years, and the last 4 of them bringing 150 episodes of this show to you has been a blast. And we're still getting better at doing so each and every week. Now, I can say that because I'm not talking about myself. I'm referring to the talents and work of Will, Dave, Alex, Casey, Jill, Stephanie, Amanda, Caroline, Tom, David, Luke, Justin, Jake, Vicky, and now Mercy, welcome to the team, who have all made this last year the best one yet. Thanks for putting up with me, and here's to another 150 more. Oh, and if you've noticed and liked the 10 different memes that have been here on the screen all quarter, we'll be releasing to the social media later this week. I can tell you they make great phone wallpapers. For Inside Star Citizen, I'm Jared Huckabee. Thanks for watching, thanks for 150 episodes, and we'll see you back here in about a month.
So 150 episodes. I've got thoughts, especially with this one. There was a lot in this. It's a long sprint report. I talked about a lot. I'm not going to go over all of it today. In fact, I've said most of what I'm going to say. I think if we really dove into all the things they showed today and the implications that they might have, there would be like 40 to 50 minutes worth to talk about here. I think, like he mentioned, the fact that they're working on Fauna, it's an interesting direction because they're working on Boids, which are different from something like the Boreal Stalker or the Stormwall, which they've also kind of made hints that they're working on AI-wise, so I'm not sure how far that is going with Fauna. It's cool to have birds and fish going about doing their thing, you know, kicking it, flapping, whatever, but like, whatever. It's not the Fauna that I'm interested in. The additions of new drugs also is interesting because that comes at the same time that they're also introducing new materials in iron, and they're starting to talk a little bit about crafting. So they still aren't talking about the quantum simulation or the economy or anything, but there are more assets coming in that feel like they hold significance in terms of where they are in the economy, and they just haven't started fully talking about that just yet. So that's exciting. The ships are cool. The city updates are cool. Lorville, I would prefer to hear more about how they plan on updating the actual city itself. I think that will fall in line with building interiors, so we probably won't hear about that soon. But I hope with the new player experience, we do hear some about what's going on with ArcCorp. Besides that, in the next sprint report, I also hope we can get a UI update. What's going on with MFDs, with the Galaxy Star Map, with the HUD and visor, with scanning, with hacking. There's a lot of UI work going on. Sorry about that. There's a lot of UI work going on that we just don't really know about. So there are plenty more things that they could talk about. I hope we get another sprint report next month. But for now, that's what we've got for what's going on with Star Citizen. I think it's okay. I think what we just saw was decent. Not the juiciest bits, but definitely some good stuff. Oh, the law areas is pretty good. This is cool for bounty hunting, which we'll hear more about later. There is a lot of gameplay stuff going on right now, and they didn't talk about a lot of it in this episode, but there is a lot going on, and we've seen it in ISC, we've seen it in Star Citizen Live, we've seen it on the monthly reports. So I'm excited for what's coming further in this year and what we'll get to see in our Inside Star Citizen when it comes back. Next time you see me, I'll be back in Turkey, so we'll be back to normal. Either way, thanks for coming and checking this out, and I'll see you all in a few weeks.